Hey everybody, welcome to Monday Night Call. My name is Tova Privet. If you don't know me, I'm an Emerald Ambassador on Natalie Dolan's team. And tonight we're going to chat about mindset mastery. So I have a ton of notes here. If I'm looking down, that's what I'm going over. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys to because this is a notes intensive kind of chat. I said that earlier for anyone who was here. So let's get this set up before we get going. All right, so mindset mastery is the title. And I just want to read you something to start out with to kind of keep in the back of your head. We talk about mindset a lot and throw terms around like belief and thoughts and affirmations, and it can be a little abstract. So I'm hoping by the end of this training, it makes a little more sense. But here's a thought to start with. Your thoughts and beliefs are very powerful. Whether you're aware of them or not, attempting to harness them or not, they are controlling your actions. Your actions are controlling your results. If you want different results, then you have to take different actions. These are determined by how you manage your beliefs, thoughts, and emotions. So we're going to go over beliefs, thoughts, and emotions primarily today, beliefs and thoughts, and where those come from and what we can do to kind of leverage those. I like that word, that they're there if we understand them or not, and they're running our actions and our results if we understand them or not. So really where we find ourselves is for decades, Jim Rohn has said it forever, and a lot of other people, about controlling your thoughts and what you say when you talk to yourself and kind of your mindset. But what's happened is science and psychology have in essence caught up with all this mindset stuff. So now we actually know literally in the brain what's going on and where. And I don't know about you guys, but the way I work, if I understand exactly what's going on in my brain chemically and physiologically, I'm more likely to do something. Because when I'm doing it and trying to keep up with my habits, I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember why we're doing this. So before jumping into kind of a little bit of A&P stuff, I want to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So when you say thoughts or say beliefs, what exactly are we talking about? So thoughts, I want to start up here because depending on the book you read and who you talk to, some people will say, they all kind of feed each other, but beliefs first versus thought. And so thoughts are kind of the 1,000-foot view. We encounter 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So just think of it as this constant reel that's passing before us. They may be true, they may not, they may be relevant to us, they may not. Our brain is not going to process that many thoughts a day. So there's a section of our brain that just recognizes these are going through, and then there's a different section of your brain that's actually going to process. So that's a cool thing because we actually have some control over which of those 50 to 70,000 thoughts get kind of manifested over. A belief is a thought that we've decided is real. So we've, in essence, given some life to it, acceptance that something actually exists. So all thoughts are not beliefs. And you got to be careful which ones we kind of let over, through the gate and end up dwelling on and believing are real. I want to kind of hit on it again, whether you recognize this or not, and are controlling it or not, it is happening. And these things are affecting your actions. So you really got to be intentional about it. And then emotions, we all love how our emotions come into play. It's really, as you can read for yourself, a state of complex feelings that are kind of tied to physiological and psychological manifestations, but depending on, we'll tie it in later, how strong your beliefs are and what actions they lead to, they're gonna elicit emotions. Because think about it, if your actions, your beliefs are strong and in the right direction, and your actions are where they should be, and your results are where they should be, that's gonna bring about happy, positive emotions. And then the flip side of that too, if we feel like our actions aren't where they should be and our results aren't where we want them, we can have negative emotions about that. So we can also control those and kind of guide those along the same way. All right, for those of you who like outlines and bullet points, I have three main points I'm going to go through. I love outlines. So we're going to just begin with awareness, understanding what's actually going on. If we understand it, then we can have a bigger power to edit and control it. Application, how are we going to leverage this to our benefit, specifically for our business? That's what we're talking about today, but you can take these principles and apply them anywhere in your life. And then what are the changes that will end up manifesting? So before I get into that, we're going to begin with awareness, and I want to start with your conscious and subconscious mind. This seems a little like, geez, what are you getting us into here? Is this like a class? It's going to come full circle in a minute, I promise. So hang in here for the next few slides, and it's going to make a little more sense. So our conscious mind, this is where thoughts begin. Remember, we said the 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. This part of our brain is very directional, instructional, logical, task-oriented. So just kind of keep that inside of your head. This is a second to second, all those thoughts kind of flashing by. Now, the other side, not anatomically, just figuratively speaking, your subconscious mind is where we find our beliefs, the seat of our emotions. This is where things really become long-term memories. We have a longer attention span, and it's relational. A lot of the stuff we talk about, your why, your future, your vision. So how do these relate to each other, and why do we care what's in our subconscious mind, all these things, versus our conscious mind? How these two things work together, the main thing is that they want to live in harmony. They don't want to have anything contradicting between the two sides. So they're going to constantly seek balance. They're going to constantly look for evidence to support one another. So it doesn't have any bias. And let me explain this for a second. So with the conscious and subconscious mind, they're have all these inputs, and they're trying to balance things out and get them in harmony, but they're not interpreting things, whether that's true, that's a true thought and belief, or that's a false one, or that's a good one or helpful one, or that's a bad one. It doesn't work that way. It just is taking this input in and then seeking to kind of validate itself. Again, this is all going to make sense in a minute. So conscious, subconscious mind, they're going to always try to get in harmony with one another. All right, so what system kind of regulates what gets across these two channels? So it's called your RAS system, and it's your reticular activating system. Again, the science is about to stop, but this is the connection between your conscious and your subconscious mind. So your conscious is where all the thoughts, 50 to 70,000 random thoughts, second to second, short-term memory, logic, all that stuff. Your subconscious mind is your beliefs, your emotions, your long-term memory, really things that are running a lot of what we do. So RAS, we're just going to call it that from now on, your RAS, he's the gatekeeper or the bouncer. He decides who gets to come in and who gets to stay. It's the filter. When the thoughts are all coming up to the door, everybody's not going to get in. And the RAS decides what is let in. It gives life to our thoughts. And it's just a little network of neurons and a part of your brainstem that we'll circle kind of back to later. You see some of our senses are located there at the end. That'll make sense why we want to know that. So he's the gatekeeper. He is, for the medical people out there, this will make more sense. He triages the thoughts. So think of the Facebook algorithm, how certain things cause things to go up in your feed. So the RAS is going to decide what's more important, what gets to go across, because it's definitely not all the thoughts. So what kinds of things allow people to get past that gatekeeper? Repeating thoughts again and again. Again, remember, it doesn't matter if they're true or false. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad. If they're constantly being repeated, your brain is going to seek evidence for them. It's going to move them across from short-term memory to long-term memory and just constantly look for things to reinforce them. So I think the best way to learn, or how I learn best, is through examples. And I'm going to give a few of these. So if here's just a random one, you and your family decide you need a new car. And after talking, you decide, I think we want a Jeep. We really like Jeeps. You and your spouse are talking about it. You look some Jeeps up online. Facebook heard you, it starts giving you all these Jeep ads. You're price shopping. You go out the next day to drive your kids to school. And what do you know? What do you start seeing everywhere? You start seeing all these Jeeps everywhere. Did Jeep like suddenly go on sale or suddenly start manufacturing more Jeeps, or that people bought something different where you live? No, your brain has decided, it triaged that up. So now it is actively, aggressively seeking things to reinforce that thought that you had more than once. So that's kind of a neutral one. There's one other example. If you'll play along with me for a second, I want you to look around where you're sitting. And for the next like 10 seconds, I want you to look around and count as many things that are brown as possible. Light brown, dark brown, it doesn't matter. Just look around and count. Okay, we've counted some brown stuff. So everybody close your eyes, just play along with me. So we know we just counted all that brown stuff. I want you to tell me how many red items you saw. So you can open your eyes. The point is, I think everybody knew, like, wait, what? I couldn't remember when I did the exercise in the room I was in. I was like, what, maybe 1 or 2 red items? And I opened my eyes and looked around again, and there was like 9 red items. But my eyes weren't seeking that. My brain wasn't seeking that, because I had said brown, I'm looking for brown. So here, this is the thing where you look, you'll go. What thoughts you feed will grow. All those little sayings you hear, this is the science behind it. And it's your conscious and subconscious and the RAS deciding what gets across that pathway. All right, so something else about the RAS that we want to understand is called neuroplasticity, and it goes into, it's another component of all the stuff we just talked about. And really what it is, we didn't always know this, but your brain has the ability to reorganize and rewire itself. So this is good, because if you've always thought things in a certain way and done things in a certain way, that doesn't mean you're stuck that way. We can retrain our brains, kind of like weight training, and reorganize things. So another way to think of it is a software upgrade, like hacking your mind. And I'm hoping a lot of the information I give you today helps you to do that. All right, so again, I love my examples. So we're gonna do another story time with a snow skiing example. So hang in here with me. So you're a diamond at Plexus and can afford nice, beautiful vacations to like Vail, Colorado. So imagine that we're there and we're skiing on a trip with a bunch of our Plexus friends. So you go up to the intermediate hills. We're not like black diamond skiers, but we're up there, and it's a super nice resort. And we see it's snowing, and there's a path that seems to be kind of the most common path. So we're like, okay, let's go. So you go ski down this path that a lot of people have skied before you, that seems to be pretty worn, and you ski down. It's nice and smooth. The snow has been packed down. It's pretty obvious where to go. It's not confusing. It doesn't take a whole lot of energy because the path has been forged and it's smooth. You get down, you decide that was fun. That was pretty easy. You go up and you do it again. So every single time you go down that pathway, you're packing the snow down harder and harder. Your muscle memory is learning that route, and it's taking less focus and less energy. All right, so you decide, for some reason, someone suggests you like, hey, you should really consider doing, this is a big resort. There's a lot of options. You should really consider trying another path. Why don't you just try one yourself? So you go up there and you decide to be brave. And it's one of those big resorts where you can like ski through the woods if you want to. So you decide, hey, I'm gonna try something new. So you're skiing through this new path, forging it yourself through the woods. Remember, I said it's snowing, so it's powdery snow. You're really having to pay attention because it's not packed down at all. No one's gone before you, so it's not obvious where to go. You're really having to mentally pay attention and not slamming any trees. You're having to work physically harder to kind of control where your skis are going. And you get down there and you're like, that wasn't too bad. I think I can do better. So you go up and you do it again. And this time you can see a little bit of the path where you were, and you go, and this time it's not quite as difficult. So you keep doing that and you're going to pack down that snow. Your muscles are going to learn that route. Your mind's going to learn that route, and it's going to become more and more intuitive. And I've said it a few times, it was snowing. So you get back up there and you're trying to decide you're going to go down that new path, and you look over, and funny enough, that old path, the snow that's been falling has covered up that old path. So this is the way to think of neural pathways. You can write new ones. As you write new ones, it's uncomfortable. It takes a lot more focus. It takes time, but it will eventually become packed down and comfortable and quick, just like that other one was, which maybe wasn't serving you so well. Hopefully that example made sense. All right, so we're done with all the awareness stuff, and now we're getting into some action steps. So again, for those of you who like bullet points and outlines, here you go. So for our business specifically, we're talking about today, what do we need to evaluate? Before we can move and make changes, we need to figure out where we are and what's going on. This is important to have a really honest conversation. This is more than just what your points are at. This is really where you are in a lot of spots, and you should be having coaching calls with your upline, and they should be really honest with you about what things look like right now. And that's not criticisms, that's just knowing where we are so we can figure out where you want to go. That's the next question. Where do you want to go? So with this point, the evaluation part that I'm at is like 1,000-foot view. It's really where are we going long-term? What are our long-term goals? And y'all know the stats that you're way more likely to achieve your goals if you simply write them down. You'd be shocked how many people don't do that. So if you haven't done that, definitely do that. And this also helps where whiteboards and things like that come into play. And everything I'm talking about today has come from several books I've read, a bunch of podcasts, different teachers. So it's kind of everything squashed together. But a Tony Robbins thing I went to, he talked about a compelling future. And I love that term. And really, if you haven't ever taken the time to write this out, you should, in essence, write it down literally on a piece of paper with a pen or pencil, and talk about not what it feels like to rank up to diamond or anything like that. Think further past that. What does your life look like when you've achieved your goals? Let's say you've been a diamond for 3 years, if that's your goal. What does your life look like? Where are you living? What's your day-to-day look like? What do you see your husband doing? What do you see your kids doing? What do you see your holidays looking like? Your stress level. Of course, we can't predict how anything's going to be, but you need to come up with a compelling future. If you cannot see it and you can't feel it, it's not going to feed your belief enough to affect your actions to get there. So to be able to practice all this stuff, you got to take the time to have the conversation with yourself, to figure out your goals and really craft that compelling future. All right, so here we get into some stuff that I know y'all have heard before. So leveraging that reticular activating system, your RAS. So we went over all the massive details about it and what it is and how it works. So now what can we do with that information? We understand the Jeep thing. We understand the brown versus red thing. So we're going to use this science to help us, and it can be relationships, it can be your business, anything. So affirmations, if you're not familiar with them, I think most of us are probably familiar with them. They're positive statements that are stated as fact and as present tense. So something like, I'm an extremely strong leader on my Plexus team. Business builders, intelligent, self-motivated business builders are attracted to my team. Statements like that, that things that might be growing or that you want to grow it's not necessarily where you're at, it's where you want to be. But parts of our brain don't necessarily differentiate between a future dream, a present tense, and a past. What you're doing is, this is a thought, you're circulating in that, big mess of thoughts. And then when we repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, our brain's going to move it up in the algorithm. And that gatekeeper, the RAS, is going to decide, well, hey, we seem to be focusing on this thought a lot. We seem to be saying it. We seem to be writing it. I think we need to move this guy over into subconscious and start seeking evidence to support this. If you haven't ever learned about this stuff, it can literally sound like voodoo, but I kid you not, talk to any of the Jules, and I would venture to guess almost all of them have lived the affirmation life, and it really is amazing what things will start changing. And you're really leveraging a lot of things you aren't aware of. You're going to end up putting yourself in situations and conversations and things that you're really not in tune to, but now your subconscious is seeking evidence. So people have asked me before, like specifics for new neural pathways. They say 30 to 60 days, that whole skiing example. So commit to your affirmations for at least that. And then you should be changing them. So it should be a thing like working out. It happens every day. And then 5 to 15 minutes a day. It'd be nice if we could all set aside that time. Sometimes our lives aren't conducive to that. So for me, I love doing my affirmations when I'm in the shower, when I'm in the car by myself, and when I'm on my Peloton. Those are 3 places that I find myself often, and usually alone, and I can really get good affirmations done. So again, for visual learners and people who like examples, you need to think of your brain as soil, rich soil in a garden, and what you're planting and gardening and giving attention to is going to grow. If you plant tomato seeds, it's going to grow. If you plant corn, it's going to grow. So it's the same thing. If whatever thoughts you're planting and cultivating will grow into beliefs and emotions. And our brain sees it as just different types of vegetables. There's not one that's good or bad. So you must be intentional. If you want to grow good thoughts, actions, beliefs, results, you have to be intentional with it. All right, so we said we evaluated where we are, what we need to do, and then we talked about efforts, really what we're gonna do with our RAS, with affirmations and the brain gardening. So energy, how do we keep this energy, if you want to call it that, or momentum going? Because we have the 1,000-foot view of this compelling future that we're headed towards. But that can take years to get to, and life happens, and everything doesn't always go. Our businesses are like the stock market trend, where upward trajectory, but there's always those dips in there. So you got to be intentional with making proximal wins, small goals for yourself. This can happen in a lot of ways. So let's start with our business one. You have long-term goals. So with your upline, you should be setting, quarterly goals, and then breaking down your quarterly goals into monthly goals. These are plans. I mean, everything's not going to go just as planned, but you got to be aiming somewhere. So what is it? We get a monthly goal. We want to grow this many points this month. We want to make this many silvers this month. That goes back to what IPA you're doing every day. And we all know this, you guys know these things, but those little IPA wins, give yourself some tiny reward for that. You can scroll on Facebook for 5 or 10 minutes, set a timer, can watch a show for 5 or 10 minutes, but do something that feeds you, that brings you joy. Not that IPA doesn't, but as a check and balance, the fact that you did it, you have a small win to celebrate. If accountability groups and IPA chats feed you and make you feel really good that you check that item off your list, do that. Other ways to have small wins are things like just simply making your bed in the morning, parking far away and walking. It's keeping little promises to yourself. Why does this matter? Why it just makes you a happier, good person? No. This is compounding effects. So if you know about compounding interest, proximal wins are the same way. The more small wins you have, gives you momentum and energy, and it will make getting towards those monthly goals, quarterly goals, yearly goals, compelling future goals easier. But it kind of starts with small wins. So you got to set yourself up for that. It's not going to just happen. So concerning engagement, the last point here under our action section, I learned a lot of this from a Tony Robbins thing recently, how to really anchor the stuff we've learned and the stuff we're doing, specifically with affirmations. And it was really interesting because remember in the RAS, I said the senses are there except for smell. And it's like, okay, that's nice. Why does that matter? So here you go. If you want to really have your thoughts and beliefs rooted deep, these beliefs about what's going on that we're converting from thoughts to beliefs, if you add these things in, it will help. So movement when you're speaking it, I love doing my IPA. So something as simple as you pick the movement, but you're doing something with your body, touching your heart, or I have a strong team that's expanding. Whatever you want to do as you're saying your affirmations, it feels funny. But if you're doing something physically, it changes your brain chemistry. I'm sure y'all have heard the article about the power pose thing, where if you stand up straight with your shoulders back and put your hands on your hips and take deep breaths, it literally changes your neurotransmitters inside of 2-minute period. So same thing, like if you're feeling really good about your business, good about yourself, excited, how are you standing and how are you breathing versus if you're super discouraged and depressed about stuff, you're leaning over, like you don't even notice it. So be conscientious when you're doing something as simple as these affirmations. Sit up straight, take deep breaths, move a part of your body while you're doing it, changing the volume and tone of your voice so you're engaging physically and what you're feeling, even on your skin and motion, and then the sounds, what you're hearing, and then what you're seeing. So vision boards, stuff like that. But I love a podcast I heard the other day. I absolutely love this. And I've heard this before from other Jules, but it never really made sense until this podcast. So there was a study that looked at how many times a day the average person unlocks their phone. And it was 110 times per day. So they put software on people's phones that agreed to it. We unlock our phones probably well over 200 times a day because it's literally what we do for a living. And so think about that. If you were to, Natalie Dolan did this when she was going for Emerald. She made a lock screen that had several pictures of things that represented kind of her vision board for going for Emerald. So every single time she looked at her phone, that was in essence like a visual affirmation that she was seeing, and her brain went there and thought of it. So that was a repeated thought that's going to convert over. The gatekeeper's going to let it in and seek to reinforce it. So do your lock screen, do your vision boards. All right. And then try, if you can, as you're doing these affirmations, to kind of meditate on what emotions are associated. That's more the compelling future thing. When these things are happening, how are you going to feel? And I know we're at the very end here and we're going a little bit late, but just hang in, we're almost done. So finally, when we capture these thoughts, and you need to be intentional about capturing them. And listen, y'all, you're still, no matter how hard you try, you're still going to have bad thoughts, negative thoughts, crazy thoughts. Accept them for what they are. That's just one of the 70,000 thoughts that are going to fly past my head today. And that doesn't mean they're facts. That doesn't mean they're true. I'm just going to let them go. And when you catch yourself in thoughts that aren't serving you and aren't taking you towards your goals, just repeat one of those affirmations right then, there, no matter what. Just whisper it to yourself, redirect your brain. And I kind of see it as like training toddlers. Like, how often do you have to redirect toddlers? Like, no, we don't touch that. No, we don't touch that. No. Eventually they learn with a lot of repetition. So think of your neural pathways that way. And these are going to form beliefs. And these are going to make things like habits and actions easier. I don't have time for the living room example, so I'll have to do that on my stories or something one day. All right. Beliefs are, this was at the very beginning, acceptance that a thought is true. Okay. It's a habit of mind. And that's kind of like the kid thing we just talked about. You have to have insurmountable belief in yourself and your goals. And you have to feed that. I think of Lance Armstrong, not just with his cycling, but the guy got this very terminal cancer. I don't know, everyone knows he had cancer, but it was a really bad, had like a 2% survival rate. This guy's mindset is that of, no, I will conquer that challenge no matter what, whether that's cycling, whether that's cancer. You have to have that kind of belief in yourself that it doesn't matter how long this takes. It doesn't matter how complicated it is. We will figure it out. And strong trust and confidence in something is faith. You all know that. And specifically faith, it's something that we don't have evidence of. And with you guys, you really have to believe in yourself, and you don't necessarily have evidence, like hardcore evidence that you can make it to your goals. But that's where we come in. We are no different than you. And the Jewels here have made it to their goals and are reaching for further goals. But you do have evidence of thousands of people that have gone before you and done the same thing. So this is just summing up what we talked about with being aware of how our brains work and what's going on, and then how we can kind of hack our minds and take control of it, specifically with things like affirmations and redirecting our brain, and then how it's going to actually change our actions. And listen, y'all, a lot of times we look at our businesses and we think it's an action or behavior problem, and more often than not, it's a belief and thought problem. And it's not an action behavior problem. There's a million different methods that can get you where you want to go. There's not a million mindsets. So really, it's more beneficial to work on your mindset, and everything else will kind of come into play if you put forth kind of any effort at all. So your final takeaways before I say goodnight to you guys: until you master your mind, you'll never master any part of your life. This is really true, specifically in your business. And these things will bleed over. When you start mastering and controlling your business, you'll see it in your fitness, you'll see it in your finances, or vice versa. It's habit forming that you can apply to other areas. I am more than anything I'm going through or have gone through. So it doesn't matter what's happened up to this point. Remember, those neural pathways can be rewritten. You're no different than anybody else, and you can train just like muscles, just like getting in the gym. It's uncomfortable, doesn't feel good at first, but you absolutely can do it. Extraordinary lives require extraordinary situations. And this is really where you can leverage your subconscious. And being afraid of trying new things and being afraid of being uncomfortable will keep you out of those situations, and we don't want that. Let me see if I can get out of here, stop the screen sharing. I really appreciate it. And I know I kept you a little bit late and it was a ton of information, but I hope you feel a little more empowered to take control of your thoughts and know that you can leverage your thoughts into certain beliefs and emotions, which is going to make certain actions a lot easier. And we know the actions that will lead to our results and help us reach our goals. So I appreciate you guys coming tonight, and I will see you next week. Have a good night.